Yo, what is up YouTube? We are back with another video. In this week's deck profile, we have Gardevoir EX. I played this deck this week, Saturday and Sunday locals. Saturday I got first place, and then Sunday I got third place. This deck is a lot of fun. If you want to play it yourself, I will have the copy and paste deck list format in the description, so you can just copy and paste it into PTCGL and give it a try yourself. So for the Pokemon, we are playing 2 copies of Gardevoir EX. Gardevoir EX has the ability Psychic Embrace. As often as you like during your turn, you may attach a basic Psychic Energy card from your discard pile to one of your Psychic Pokemon. If you do, put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. And then for 2 Psychic, 1 colorless, we have Miracle Force 190 and it heals from all special conditions. We're then playing 4 copies of Kirlia. Kirlia has the ability Refinement. Once during your turn, you may discard a card from your hand and draw 2. Very, very good. The draw power in this deck is insane. So if you do like to draw a bunch of cards, this is the deck for you. We then have 4 copies of Ralts. Ralts, 70 HP. We need to evolve into our guy somehow. Does have the attack teleportation burst, which is very good into the control slash stall matchup. You want to have as many of these on the board with 1 psychic energy. So if they bring it up into the active, you teleportation burst into a different attacker that you want in the active. That way they can never bring this up and stall you, because you can always just bring it back to the bench, and they're going to eventually run out of stuff like Countercatcher and Boss. We are then playing 2 copies of Munkidori. Munkidori, the MVP of the deck in my opinion, has the ability Adrenabrain. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon has a dark energy attached, you can move 3 damage counters from one of your Pokemon to one of your opponent's Pokemon. Since we are going to be powering up Gardevoir EX with its ability, we can often just move the 30 damage to another of our opponent's bench Pokemon. That way our 190 plus the 30 does 220 damage, which knocks out most basic 2 prizes. And then it has the attack Mind Bend for 60 damage, and your opponent's active Pokemon is now confused. Very good if you're in a pinch, just be able to stall your opponent for 1 turn. We then play 1 copy of Tatsugiri. If it's in the active, we get to search the top 6 cards of our deck for a supporter. Very good. We did cut Radiant Greninja from the list for this card. We then have 1 copy of Flutter Mane. If this is in the active, our opponent's active Pokemon has no abilities. And then for 3 colorless, it does 90. And we spread 2 damage counters to our opponent's bench Pokemon any way we want. Very good with Adrenabrain. We're basically putting 50 damage on our opponent's bench. 2 from this, and then the 30 from Adrenabrain. We then play 1 copy of Screamtail. For the attack, Roaring Scream. This attack does 20 damage to one of our opponent's Pokemon for each damage counter on this Pokemon. So since we are putting 20 damage on this with every Psychic Embrace, we can hit for some very powerful numbers. I believe we cap out at 160 without any HP modifications. Very good 160, since we can just one-shot stuff like Squawkabilly. And then if we have a Gardevoir in the active and retreat, we can Adrenabrain 30 over, so we're doing 190. That takes care of stuff like Lumineon and Rotom. We are playing 1 copy of Klefki. As long as this Pokemon is in the active, basic Pokemon in play have no abilities. Very good if we're going first against Turbo decks or stuff like Regidrago. We can ideally find this third one, put it in the active, and then our opponent can't use stuff like Squawkabilly, Teal Dance, Lumineon, Radiant Greninja, any of that. Then we have 1 copy of Drifloon. It has the attack Balloon Blast. This attack does 30 damage for each damage counter on this Pokemon. We put a Bravery Charm on this. We're hitting for some crazy, crazy numbers. And then the last Pokemon we play is 1 copy of Manaphy. If this Pokemon is in play, we get to protect all our bench Pokemon from attacks for our opponent. Very good, since we do have a bunch of little weenies on our bench. So something like a Kyurem or a Radiant Greninja can just destroy our board. Now for our stadiums, we do just play 2 copies of Artazon. Search your deck for a basic non-rule box Pokemon and put it onto our bench. Very good at just getting some extra Pokemon in play. Now for supporters, we are playing 4 copies of Iono. Since we do have incredible draw with our Kirlias, we don't mind late game hitting our opponent with an Iono, because then whatever we draw, we can just discard with Refinement to boost our hand size up again. We then have 4 copies of Arven. Arven is our optimal turn 1 play going second, since we can search stuff like Buddy Poffin and TM Evo, and then we can just use the TM Evo to evolve the Ralts that we just got off the Buddy Poffin starting to Kirlia for next turn. We then have 1 copy of Professor Turo. Sometimes we have a Pokemon in the active with a bunch of energy and we need to get all the energy off it. We can just Turo it up, Pokemon goes to our hand, all the energy to the discard that we can then reaccelerate with Psychic Embrace. And for the last supporter, we are playing one copy of Boss's Orders, just a generic Gust card. We only play one copy because we do play cards like Pal Pad, so essentially we are playing 2 copies of this card. Then to start off our item cards, we are playing 4 copies of Buddy Poffin. You search for 2 Pokemon with 70 HP or less, grabs all our weenies out of the deck. We then have 3 copies of Ultra Ball, discard 2 cards from hand and search for a Pokemon. We play 2 copies of Night Stretcher, we put a Pokemon or basic energy from our discard pile into our hand. Let's say our opponent knocks out a Gardevoir. Before Night Stretcher, we would have to Super Rod and Ultra Ball or draw into it. Now we can just Night Stretcher it back into hand. We are then playing 2 copies of Earthen Vessel. We discard a card from hand and search our deck for 2 basic energies. Very good at getting the energies into our hand as well as discarding energies from our hand. Since we are a mainly 1 prize board state, we are playing 2 copies of Counter Catcher. Due to the fact that our opponent is probably taking the first KO, we gotta use this as a Boss's Orders that isn't a supporter per turn. The pink card we play is 1 copy of Unfair Stamp. If our opponent took a KO during their last turn, each player shuffles their hand into their deck. The player that played it draws 5 and your opponent draws 2. We then have 1 copy of Super Rod, shuffle up to 3 in any combination of Pokemon and basic energy. Since we grab our energy back with Psychic Embrace, we're just grabbing back Pokemon. Then we have 1 copy of Pal Pad. We shuffle 2 supporters from our discard pile into our deck. Since we mainly play a bunch of basic Pokemon, we are playing 1 copy of Hisuian Heavy Ball. We search our prize cards for 1 basic Pokemon, put Heavy Ball into the prize cards and shuffle them and put the basic Pokemon into our hand. For tools, we are playing 2 copies of TM Evolution. For 1 colorless energy, we search our deck for 2 evolution Pokemon and put them onto our bench Pokemon to evolve them. Our turn ends because it is an attack. And then the last 2 cards we play is 2 copies of Bravery Charm. The basic Pokemon this card is attached to gets 50 plus HP. Very good with stuff like Screamtail and Drifloon, since their attack damage is calculated based on how many damage counters are on that Pokemon. Since it has more HP, we can put more damage counters on it to do more damage. And then finally for energy, we are playing 7 copies of basic Psychic Energy and then 2 copies of basic Dark Energy. We need the basic Dark Energy to be attached to our Munkidori to move the damage counters over, and we need the Psychic Energies to power up our attackers. That is going to be the video for today. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next week for another Pokemon deck profile.